Chosen one. Listen carefully. Something sacred is unfolding in the unseen. The atmosphere around you is charged, like the air before lightning splits the sky. The countdown to October 22nd has already begun. Heaven has circled this date not to frighten you, but to focus you. You can feel it, can't you? That restlessness inside, that pull you can't explain. It's the Spirit's way of whispering. Do not miss this hour. And the noise of the world tries to blur what heaven is making clear. People call it coincidence. You know it's divine alignment. Every delay, every closed door, every waiting season, it's all been preparing you for this stretch of time. You were never abandoned. You were being adjusted. I once knew a man, another, chosen one who spent years trying to force open doors that weren't meant for him. He prayed, fasted, begged, but heaven stayed silent. He thought he was being ignored. But what he didn't realize was that heaven was waiting for the right hour. When that hour came, the same door he once knocked on swung wide open. And what had felt like wasted years became wisdom years. His name changed, not literally, but spiritually, from seeker to steward. That transformation happened because he stopped running ahead of God's timing. That is where you stand right now. On the edge between preparation and fulfillment, the smallest act of impatience could shift your path, but so could the smallest act of faith. Heaven is weighing both. If you could see what's being written about you in the unseen, you would stand taller. The angels assigned to your destiny are already in motion. Their wings stirring the atmosphere around your name. The sound of their movement feels like pressure, but it's really propulsion. Think of your spirit as a seed buried deep in soil. For months it feels dark, lonely, silent, yet something powerful is happening beneath the surface roots, forming, strength developing, unseen growth. The pressure you feel is not punishment, it's proof that you're sprouting. Every act of obedience this month, every time you choose prayer over distraction, humility over pride, forgiveness over revenge is forming roots that will sustain the miracle that's coming. October 22nd isn't a random day. It's a divine checkpoint. Heaven is asking, will you still trust me when you don't understand me? Your waiting is not wasted. Your silence is not forgotten. Your tears are not unnoticed. The one who called you is still writing your story. And this chapter will not end in loss, it will end in revelation. It was proclaimed in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. That is the message of this hour. The appointed time is approaching, and heaven is aligning everything necessary for your breakthrough. But the warning is clear. Do not rush what God is still building. Patience is your armor. Faith is your posture. Obedience is your weapon. Chosen one. Pause for a moment. Breathe in deeply. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is living inside you. You have what it takes to wait well. You are stronger than you think, wiser than you realize, and closer than you feel. Before this date arrives, choose stillness over striving. Choose trust over panic. When doubt knocks, answer with worship. When fear whispers, respond with faith. Every small yes strengthens the bridge between promise and manifestation. If this message speaks to your spirit, if you sense the truth pressing against your heart, then let heaven hear your agreement. Comment 888 below. That number declares new beginnings and divine alignment. Then, take a second to like, share, and subscribe, not out of routine, but as a prophetic act of faith that you are staying aligned with the move of God. The countdown is still ticking. Heaven is watching your response. The story is already in motion. Stay ready, stay rooted, and stay faithful until the appointed hour. Chosen one. Remember this, obedience today is not just about October 22nd. It's shaping the atmosphere of your entire future. Heaven is not testing you to break you. Heaven is preparing to trust you with greater things. The oil of destiny only flows through vessels that choose surrender over speed. Even when you can't see results, your faith is echoing louder than your words. Every moment you choose stillness, heaven records it as strength. You are not forgotten. You are being fortified. So as the clock continues to turn toward the appointed day, stay grounded. Keep your heart clean, your vision clear, and your spirit expectant. Heaven's countdown is not toward loss, but toward launch. You have heard it said that miracles are promised to those who believe, but few understand that miracles can also be lost. There is a mistake, subtle, almost invisible, that can cancel what heaven has been preparing for you. It does not come in the form of open rebellion. It often comes disguised as comfort. The greatest danger for the chosen ones is not persecution, it is distraction. Not denial of God, but delay in obedience. The enemy does not need to steal your faith if he can simply steal your focus. He whispers, "You have time. You can obey later." Yet every postponed obedience creates distance between you and the miracle already forming in the unseen. You stand at the doorway of something sacred, but heaven will not push you through. The door opens only to those who still tremble at God's word. A hardened heart cannot hold holy fire. The mistake that cancels miracles is not a single action, it is the slow cooling of devotion. When your heart begins to treat the presence of God as ordinary, heaven pauses. Imagine a lamp filled with oil. It burns bright, but only as long as it's watched over. If the keeper neglects it, the flame does not go out immediately. It flickers, then fades. Many believers lose their miracles not because God withdrew his promise, but because they stopped tending the flame. You felt it before the quiet tug to pray, to open scripture, to turn away from compromise. You told yourself, later. Later becomes never, and the light dims a little more. The danger of the small delay is that it never feels dangerous until it's too late. I once heard of a man who prayed for years for restoration in his family. One evening, after a sermon about forgiveness, he felt the Spirit say, "Call them tonight." But his pride answered louder. He said, "Tomorrow, when I'm ready." The next day, the call came, but it wasn't the one he expected. His father had passed away in his sleep. That night, the man sat alone, holding his phone, realizing that a single postponed act of obedience had cost him the chance to heal what was broken. The lesson remains: delay is the silent destroyer of miracles. Chosen one. Understand, this obedience is not about control. It's about alignment. Heaven's timing is exact. When God speaks, it's because the conditions are perfect. If you hesitate, even the right act done at the wrong time can lose its divine potency. That is why sensitivity to the Spirit is your greatest safeguard. In this season, the voice of the world will tempt you to choose convenience over calling. It will say, "Be practical. Take the easier road." But faith was never meant to be practical. Faith was designed to look impossible until it's done. Every miracle has a price, the price of trust. Trust that God knows what He's doing, even when you don't. Trust that His wait is not rejection. But refinement. Trust that your obedience is building something larger than you can comprehend. There's a deep truth hidden here. The miracle God is preparing for you isn't only about blessing, it's about transformation. You cannot receive new wine with the same old mindset. That's why some miracles seem delayed. They are waiting for you to mature enough to carry them. Think of a child given keys to a kingdom. Without understanding, he might turn the keys into toys. The father waits until the child grows before releasing the inheritance. It's not punishment, it's protection. In the same way, heaven guards what belongs to you until your spirit grows ready to hold it. So, before October 22nd arrives, search your heart. Ask yourself, have I postponed what God already asked me to do? Have I allowed comfort to silence conviction? The correction of heaven is never cruel. It is mercy in motion. God would rather pause your miracle than let it crush you before you are ready. We find in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guard it fiercely. Chosen one, guard it against pride, against distraction, against the illusion that you have time to waste. For the flow of miracles depends on the purity of your heart. Heaven is not withholding, it is waiting for alignment. When your heart beats in rhythm with the will of God, even silence becomes strategy. The miracle will come, not through striving, but through still obedience. There are moments when heaven does not speak loudly, only whispers. These are not the times of thunder or flashing vision, but of still guidance. You felt it before, that subtle tug in your chest, the quiet knowing that something unseen is stirring around you. That is the realm of spiritual whispers, where miracles are born before they manifest. The Spirit speaks in frequencies the distracted heart cannot hear. You cannot catch divine instructions while scrolling through noise, nor can you feel the wind of angels while your soul is tangled in comparison. This is why the stillness of your spirit matters. The quieter your world, the clearer His voice becomes. Chosen one. The enemy fears your sensitivity more than your strength. He knows that if you learn to recognize the whisper of heaven, you will never again fall for counterfeit voices. The voice of truth is not always dramatic, it's often gentle, but it carries weight. It settles in your chest like gravity. Sometimes the whispers come through interruptions, plans cancelled, opportunities delayed, relationships suddenly distant. You think it's rejection, but heaven calls it redirection. The detour is often the safest route to destiny. There's a woman I once met whose entire life changed because of a whisper. She had been planning to move abroad for work. Everything looked perfect. Documents ready. Doors open. Timing ideal. But one night, as she prayed, she felt a quiet unease, like a thread pulling her back. She almost ignored it, yet something made her pause. Weeks later, the company she was to join collapsed under financial scandal. Her hesitation saved her. That night, she wrote in her journal, Sometimes obedience sounds like hesitation. That's the mystery of divine communication. The Spirit doesn't always shout. He often leans close. When you learn to listen, even the faintest breath becomes revelation. But many miss it. They assume God only speaks in miracles, in signs and wonders. Yet Scripture reminds us otherwise. When the prophet Elijah stood on Mount Horeb, a great wind tore the mountains apart. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind came an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. Then came a fire, but still the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire came a gentle whisper. That whisper carried more power than the storm. Your life right now might feel like that mountain wind, shaking, and fire all around. Yet the answer you seek is not in the noise, but in the still, small voice that follows. The breakthrough you're praying for will not come through panic or striving, but through discernment. It is written in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. And after the fire came a gentle whisper, and when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. That moment changed everything. Elijah learned that true direction is not found in spectacle, but in surrender. The same lesson waits for you. You may wonder why heaven whispers instead of shouting, because whispers require closeness. God doesn't need to raise his voice when you're near. Every time he whispers, it's an invitation to draw closer, to silence the distractions, to lean in. The power of that intimacy terrifies darkness. So, in this sacred season, train your ears to the language of stillness. When your heart quiets, heaven's messages become unmistakable. When you sense that inward nudge, pause. When you feel peace pulling you one way, follow. When conviction burns softly, obey without delay. That is how the miracles survive the testing. That is how the chosen ones walk in rhythm with heaven's heartbeat. If this word stirs something deep in you, if you can already feel that whisper moving through your own spirit, pause here and type, "I'm listening." End of pawn. Write it not as a comment, but as a covenant. It's your way of telling heaven, I will not miss the whisper this time. End of pawn. When you type, "I'm listening," you're not just responding to a video, you're responding to heaven. It is your declaration that you refuse to let noise define your destiny. It's a sacred signal that says, "Speak, Lord, your servant is awake." Those three words break the pattern of delay. They tell the unseen world that you are shifting from distraction to discernment, from guessing to guidance. It's not a comment. It's a covenant between your spirit and the one who calls you. So whisper it with intention. Even before you type, let it rise like incense, steady, pure, surrendered it. For the moment you truly listen, the whisper turns into direction, and direction turns into destiny. You were chosen for this hour, not another. Not yesterday, not someday ahead. Now, heaven does not place you randomly in time, it plants you precisely. Every breath you take in this season carries the fragrance of divine intention. It may feel like chaos around you, but purpose hums quietly beneath it. You were born for this exact turbulence, because only those forged in storms can carry peace into them. The world may call you ordinary, but heaven has another name written for you, one that darkness recognizes and fears. There is something about your endurance, your refusal to surrender, that marks you as a vessel of divine strategy. You are not surviving this season, you are being positioned within it. When you look back, you'll see the pattern, the way closed doors rerouted you to holy ground, how betrayals became catalysts for deeper faith. God didn't misplace you in difficulty, He hid you there to grow discernment. Like an archer drawing back the string, the pressure you feel is not restraint, but direction. You are being aimed. There's a truth most never learn. Calling is not discovered in comfort. It's revealed in confrontation. The fire you face is refining something that comfort could never teach. If everything came easy, your faith would stay shallow, your heart would never stretch wide enough to hold heaven's assignment. A young man once told me he envied the peace of older believers. He said, "They seem untouched by fear." I asked him, "Do you think peace is inherited or built?" He was quiet. "Peace," I told him, "is the harvest of battles won in private. The calm you admire in others was purchased by years of storms they refused to drown in. The same will be said of you. You've endured things that broke others. You kept walking when strength should have failed. Kept forgiving when bitterness begged for a voice. That's not weakness. That's proof that heaven has reinforced your soul. The chosen are not the strongest by nature. They are the most surrendered." According to the ancient wisdom recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 31, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" That sentence is not a slogan, it's a verdict. It means the opposition may form, but it cannot function beyond divine permission. Even your enemies, without realizing it, end up advancing your purpose. What was meant to destroy you becomes the stage on which God displays His power through you. Consider Joseph in Egypt, betrayed, forgotten, falsely accused. He didn't see favor as freedom from hardship, he saw it as survival through hardship. When the famine came, the same pit that once symbolized his rejection became proof of his preparation. What others call punishment, heaven calls training. Your current season mirrors that pattern. Every misunderstanding, every silence, every waiting room has been part of the sculpting process. Heaven has been chiseling distractions away, teaching you to see beyond appearances. The calling on your life is weighty. It demands clarity that comfort could never give. Imagine a sword being forged. Metal is heated, beaten, cooled, and tested before it ever reaches the battlefield. The strikes are not random, they are rhythmic, purposeful. The blacksmith knows exactly when to apply pressure and when to rest the blade. So does your Creator. What feels like breaking is actually shaping. Chosen one. This is why you sometimes feel isolated. You are being distinguished, not discarded. There is a difference between loneliness and consecration. Heaven often hides its warriors before unveiling them. If you feel unseen, remember, so did David before he was called out of the fields. So did Esther before she stepped into the palace. Preparation always looks like obscurity until it becomes legacy. The danger of this moment is forgetting who you are in the silence. When the world measures success by noise, you might mistake quiet seasons for failure. But the silence is where God writes the blueprint for your next assignment. Do not despise the days of small beginnings. They are rehearsal for glory. When the appointed time comes, what once confined you will confirm you. The very places that tried to silence your voice will become the platforms where your testimony echoes. You will look back and see how precision replaced coincidence. Nothing wasted, nothing random, everything woven. So stand firm in the middle of the unfinished. You are not waiting for your purpose. Your purpose is waiting for you to recognize it. Heaven's plan has never been delayed. It's been deliberate. The storm was not sent to scare you, but to reveal the authority already inside you. The hour you live in demands people who carry both humility and holy boldness. You are one of them, chosen for this hour, refined by fire, steadied by grace. And when the world trembles, you will not, because you know who sent you here and why. There is a quiet war happening not around you, but within you. The battle of the mind is the front line of your destiny. Long before a miracle manifests in the natural, it must first win inside your thoughts. The enemy knows this, and that is why his sharpest weapon isn't chaos, it's suggestion. He whispers subtle lies. You're too late. You're not enough. You missed your chance. These are not random thoughts. They are darts aimed at your faith. Because if the mind bends, the miracle breaks. But the moment you replace fear with truth, you shift the entire battlefield. You have already faced seasons that tried to rewire your identity, moments when you doubted if your prayers even mattered. Yet here you are, still standing, still listening, still searching for God's whisper in the noise. That resilience isn't natural, it's divine. Heaven is fighting with you, not against you. Think of your mind as a garden. Whatever seed you water will grow. If you feed worry, it multiplies. If you nurture faith, it blossoms. The weeds of doubt do not vanish by wishing, they vanish by weeding. Every day, you choose what grows there. There's a story of a young man who had lost everything: his job, his home, his confidence. For weeks, he battled thoughts that told him he was forgotten. But each morning, he did one simple thing. He spoke life over himself. He read aloud promises of peace and strength until the soil of his mind shifted. Months later, doors began to open, not because the world changed, but because he did. That's how transformation begins, inside before outside. And when heaven sees your thoughts aligning with its truth, miracles start finding their way to you. As Jesus himself proclaimed in the Gospel of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 8, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, think about such things." This is not just instruction, it's a spiritual strategy. If your thoughts are the doorway, this verse is the key. Chosen one, your mind is a holy battlefield. Guard it, but also fill it with songs of hope, with scriptures that breathe life, with reminders that you are not abandoned. Every thought, surrendered to truth, becomes a soldier fighting on your behalf. And as you listen to these words, I want to pause not for command, but for connection. If what you've heard so far has spoken to you, if these messages have become part of your quiet strength, then consider standing with this mission. Think of it like tending a lighthouse in the storm. A single flame in the dark costs little, but keeping it burning requires oil time, effort, and faith. Each message here is that light reaching those drifting in spiritual fog, reminding them they are not forgotten. If your heart feels stirred, if you sense the value of this light, then you are already part of it. Your simple act, whether it's a like, a share, a subscribe, or even a small donation, isn't a payment. It's participation. You're helping the flame keep burning. It's like adding one drop of oil that ensures the next traveler sees the shore. There's no pressure, no demand, just an open door for those who feel led. Or picture it this way, a river of light flowing through millions of souls. Each act of kindness, each seed of generosity you release becomes a new ripple, extending the reach of that river. You may never meet the person your gesture rescues, but heaven will connect the waves. When you like or share, you're helping that river find new hearts. When you subscribe, you're choosing to stay close to the current that refreshes you. When you donate, you're pouring a few drops of living water back into the stream that once revived you. There is nothing forced in this, only invitation. A heart that gives freely keeps its own garden green. The kingdom doesn't trade, it multiplies. So, guard your mind. Keep your flame steady. And if you feel moved to stand with this message through prayer, through sharing, through generosity, know that heaven records every drop of oil poured out in faith. The light will not fade because together we keep it burning. Every time you choose to give time, prayer, or seed, you are joining the quiet army of light bearers. Together, we become lanterns along a dark road, showing others that hope still has a home in this world. Your faith fuels more than words, it fuels awakening. So keep your heart open, your hands generous, and your spirit burning bright. Heaven always multiplies what is given with love, never what is offered by force. October 22nd approaches like a slow drumbeat in the distance, and you can feel it, can't you? Something inside your spirit trembles, not from fear, but from recognition. You know this isn't just another date on the calendar. It's an intersection between obedience and destiny. Every prophetic season has a sound, and this one sounds like awakening. You've walked through enough confusion to recognize when heaven is preparing a shift. The delays, the sudden quiet, the sense that everything familiar is shaking. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. The atmosphere of your life is being rearranged to match heaven's timing. The closer you move to the appointed hour, the more the spiritual tension increases. It feels like a storm tightening its circle. But in truth, it's the wind of divine order sweeping away the unnecessary. Heaven is simplifying your path so that nothing competes for your focus. Chosen one, this is not the time to waver. This is the time to anchor. God's hand is hovering over your name, ready to release what has been waiting in the invisible realm. But it requires something sacred: alignment. Alignment doesn't mean perfection, it means positioning. It's when your actions begin to echo your prayers, when you start to live as though what God promised is already true. That's what faith looks like, right before fulfillment. A woman once told me how, years ago, she was warned in prayer about a season that would test her obedience. She didn't understand until one day an opportunity appeared, glittering, easy, profitable, yet deep inside. She felt a quiet no. Everything in her logic screamed yes, but her spirit whispered otherwise. She obeyed the whisper. Weeks later, the opportunity collapsed, revealing deceit at its core. She said, "That moment taught me that peace is the loudest prophecy." Emma, peace is not the absence of pressure, it's the presence of divine order. When your spirit is aligned with heaven, you can stand in the middle of chaos and still know where you belong. That's the kind of peace God wants to anchor in you before October 22nd arrives. Heaven's command to Joshua still resounds today. Chapter 1, Verse 9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Lent. That promise was not just for Joshua, it's for every chosen one, stepping into unknown territory. You are not walking into that date alone. Heaven walks with you. This season calls for awareness, not paranoia, but prayer, not worry, but watchfulness. There is a narrowness to prophetic time, a precision that requires listening. Heaven speaks once, twice, in dreams, in scripture, in stillness. As you draw nearer to the 22nd, treat your spirit like a compass. The needle will always point toward peace. Even when your emotions are unsure, the Spirit is not leading you to comfort, He's leading you to clarity. And remember, obedience has a sound too. It's not loud. It's the quiet yes that echoes louder than fear. This week, stay alert for divine interruptions. You may find that a cancelled plan or a sudden delay isn't misfortune, it's mercy. Heaven sometimes closes doors, not because you're unworthy, but because you're too valuable to be misplaced. If you find your heart quickening as you read this, it's because your spirit recognizes the call. You are being summoned into posture and partnership with heaven's plan. There is a prophetic number for this moment, one that represents courage and divine guidance, 555. When you comment that number, you are not engaging in ritual or superstition. You are declaring something invisible in a visible way. You are saying, I am stepping into alignment. I am ready to move when heaven moves. The number 555 symbolizes movement, grace meeting change. Transition, guided by divine strength. Writing it is like planting a flag of faith in unseen ground, telling the atmosphere around you, my courage outweighs my confusion. As you type it, picture yourself standing at the river's edge, like Joshua before the Jordan, uncertain, yet obedient. The waters may still look closed, but your act of faith is the first ripple that will make them part. That simple number becomes your yes carved into eternity. Not for show, not for anyone else, but as a whisper to heaven, I trust you to lead me through. Your journey to the 22nd isn't about waiting for a sign, it's about becoming one. Every step of obedience makes your life a testimony others will read. So hold steady, chosen traveler. The air around you is heavy with promise. Heaven's instructions are precise because the blessing is near. Let peace lead you. Let faith guide you. And let your courage write the next line of your destiny. When you feel that pull to act, don't resist it, respond. Write 555 as your symbol of alignment. Then step forward with the confidence of one who knows. The same God who promised is already preparing the fulfillment. Mercy waits longer than we deserve, but not forever. There comes a moment when heaven stops whispering and begins watching to see what you will do with what you've already heard. That moment is where you now stand. Divine patience is one of the deepest mysteries of God. It is both infinite and conditional. He waits for your surrender. Yet His timeline for purpose remains exact. Mercy is not weakness, it is opportunity. It is heaven holding its breath, hoping you'll turn fully before the clock strikes completion. You've been feeling that tension lately, the sense that grace is still extended, but thinner now, sharper, closer to the edge. That's not condemnation, it's invitation. It's heaven saying, I've brought you this far. Don't stop short of transformation. Mercy always pauses before miracles. It waits for agreement before the Red Sea parted. God waited for Moses to raise his staff. Before Jericho fell, he waited for Israel to march. Heaven's power never activates without human alignment. You are part of that pattern. Through the prophet Hosea, the Lord spoke, saying, Chapter 10, verse 12, Sow righteousness for yourselves. Reap the fruit of unfailing love. And break up your unplowed ground, for it is time to seek the Lord, until he comes and showers his righteousness on you. No, this is the call of mercy. It asks you to plow again where you once gave up, to dig where the soil feels too hard, to seek even when you're tired of seeking. Because the miracle does not come to those who merely wish, it comes to those who keep sowing in faith. Imagine mercy as morning dew resting on a field. It doesn't stay forever. The sun eventually rises, and what once softened the soil begins to fade. The wise farmer rises early to catch it. The distracted one wakes too late and wonders why the ground has hardened. Heaven is not punishing those who sleep. It's rewarding those who are awake. You are that farmer. The ground is your heart. Every prayer, every confession, every quiet surrender is a seed. Some of them have not yet sprouted, and you've wondered if God forgot them. He hasn't. They are buried beneath layers of waiting. And mercy is the rain that will soon reach them. But mercy can only water what you're willing to keep in the ground. Some give up too soon, digging up seeds to check if they're growing. That's how miracles die, not because God is unfaithful, but because impatience uproots what heaven was still nurturing. In these days, before the 22nd, your greatest act of faith may simply be staying planted, holding your ground, believing that the seed you buried in tears will bloom in time. The soil doesn't speak, but it remembers every tear, every act of repentance, every whispered prayer is catalogued in heaven's archives. Mercy is still leaning toward you now, covering what could have been judgment. It doesn't erase consequence, but it rewrites outcome. The very thing that should have closed your story becomes the stage for redemption. That is what grace does. It interrupts endings. You've felt the weight of choices before, the sting of regret, the heaviness of what if. Yet here you are, still under mercy's shadow. That means heaven hasn't closed your chapter. It's only waiting for your yes. There's something sacred about this kind of waiting. It's different from human patience. It's divine restraint. Imagine a conductor lifting his hand, pausing before the next movement of a symphony. The musicians hold their breath, instruments poised, waiting for the signal. That pause isn't silence, it's power withheld for perfect timing. So too, with heaven, mercy pauses not because God hesitates, but because he wants you in harmony before he releases the next note. If he moves before you're ready, what was meant to bless could break. That's why this pause is holy. Chosen one. You are standing in the pause between promise and manifestation. Do not mistake stillness for absence. The same God who waited for Noah to build, who waited for Mary to believe, who waited for Peter to return, is waiting for your agreement. Every delay you feel now is soaked in mercy. Heaven has extended time so you can realign before the release. Don't use that grace to delay further. Use it to decide. Soon, The dew will lift. The field will harden or flourish based on your response. But right now, mercy still lingers. The air is heavy with second chances. You can almost feel heaven's gaze, hopeful, patient, poised. This is the hour before the harvest, the silence before the sound, the final stillness before heaven moves again. Distraction never arrives, wearing a warning label. It comes dressed as something familiar, harmless, even comforting. It speaks softly, promising rest from the pressure of obedience, offering shortcuts to ease the weight. Yet every distraction carries one purpose: to steal your focus before fulfillment. You've probably noticed how, just when your spirit grows serious about alignment, everything suddenly competes for your attention. Old conversations, sudden fatigue, endless scrolling, reopened wounds, each one a thread tugging at the edge of your focus. These are not random. They are part of the ancient strategy to dilute destiny. The enemy does not need to make you evil. He only needs to make you busy. A heart that is scattered cannot carry revelation. That is why spiritual warfare so often looks like mental exhaustion. Heaven is trying to plant direction while the world throws noise at your soil. In this season, discernment is your defense. It is the difference between the voice of God and the echo of distraction. The two can sound similar, but their fruit reveals their source. The voice of God brings peace, even when it challenges. The echo of distraction brings urgency that drains, not direction that steadies. There's an old story about a watchman who was stationed at the gates of an ancient city. His job was simple: stay awake and sound the alarm if danger approached. One night, the air was calm, stars bright, the road empty. Hours passed, and the watchman began humming to himself, glancing at the sky, feeling safe enough to rest. Just before dawn, an enemy caravan slipped through the shadows. Unhindered. The watchman woke too late. The gates were already breached. The city's walls were strong, but their strength meant nothing because vigilance had fallen asleep. That story is a mirror for the spirit. When your watchfulness dulls, distraction creep in quietly. They never shout, they whisper. They rarely destroy instantly. They erode slowly. The Apostle James instructs with piercing simplicity. Chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And submission is not weakness, it's focus. It means keeping your heart turned toward what matters. Even when lesser lights glitter nearby, distractions don't always look signful. Sometimes they're wrapped in good things done out of season. Even ministry, ambition, or affection can become interference if they take the place of stillness with God. The enemy is subtle enough to replace sin with busyness, because both separate you from intimacy. You've likely felt this tug of war, the urge to do something, anything, rather than sit in silence. The mind craves movement when the spirit is being refined. Yet, if you can stay still long enough, wisdom begins to rise from the quiet like dawn through mist. There's a reason Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He understood that the noise of the crowd can drown out the instructions of heaven. The miracle at hand is not born in the middle of noise. It is shaped in hidden stillness. Distraction is not only external, it can live inside your thoughts. Regret about the past, fear about the future, even obsession with timing. Each is a storm meant to cloud the horizon of faith. The way to still that storm is simple but costly. Surrender. You do not silence distraction by fighting harder, but by yielding deeper. Imagine standing in a raging wind. The harder you push, the stronger it feels. But when you kneel, the wind passes over you. That's what surrender does. It doesn't remove the storm. It repositions you beneath it. Right now, heaven is calling you back to focus, to stop letting small noise dictate divine movement, to see how many of your recent frustrations were never attacks, just distractions wearing the mask of urgency. Chosen one, you are too close to the unveiling to lose your clarity now. Guard your eyes, your ears, your time. Every moment you give to distraction is a moment stolen from preparation. The voices that call you away from stillness may sound harmless, but they're leading you toward delay. This season requires what the ancients called single-heartedness, a mind steady, a heart unfractured. It is the discipline of walking in one direction while the world shouts from every side. When you feel that pull to divide your attention, remember, you are a watchman on the wall of your own purpose. Stay awake. Stay still. Stay aware. For the voice of God is often the softest one and the most easily missed. Guard your silence as treasure, for in that quiet, heaven hides its clearest instructions. The louder the world becomes, the softer God speaks. Conviction is not condemnation. It is heaven's way of calling you home. When your heart burns with that quiet ache, when a single sentence pierces deeper than 1,000 sermons, that's not shame. It's the voice of the Spirit reminding you who you are. You've been feeling that pull lately, haven't you? The sense that something unseen is trying to get your attention, to draw you closer before it's too late. That's conviction, the holy pressure that proves God still cares enough to correct. It's the sound of mercy echoing inside your chest. The world confuses conviction with guilt, but they are opposites. Guilt condemns and chains you to the past. Conviction releases and invites you toward healing. Guilt says, "You are finished." Conviction says, "You are not done yet." Oh, sometimes conviction arrives through discomfort, people walking away, opportunities closing, words cutting sharper than intended. Yet beneath it all, heaven is speaking softly, "Return." Oh, you see, the voice of conviction doesn't always sound like thunder. Often, it sounds like memory, a verse you can't forget, a kindness you once showed but stopped, a promise you made when your faith was strong. Conviction is heaven pulling you back to that purity again. The writer of Hebrews urges us with timeless clarity. Chapter 3, verse 15. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. The hardness of heart is the greatest danger to a chosen one. It doesn't come suddenly. It grows through small compromises. Every time you silence that inner nudge, the heart builds another layer. Soon, what was once conviction begins to feel like annoyance. And that's when spiritual blindness begins. Yet even now, mercy is near. Conviction is not proof that you've failed. It's proof that heaven hasn't given up on you. The silence would be more terrifying than the sting of truth. There's a man I once knew who told me that he hadn't felt God's presence in years. His eyes looked tired, hollow. He said, "I think I went too far." But one evening, alone in his room, a memory surfaced the day he first believed. He felt a tear fall, then another. That night, No angel appeared. No vision came. But his heart softened. He whispered one line, "I still want you." That was enough. Conviction reopened the door that guilt had locked. Chosen one. Your tears are not weakness. They are the ink heaven uses to rewrite stories. Every time conviction rises, it's the Spirit's way of saying, the author is not done yet. Perhaps you've been carrying things, words you wish you hadn't said. Choices you can't undo. Habits that numb instead of heal. Lay them down now. Not as punishment, but as exchange. Heaven never demands what it doesn't intend to redeem. Conviction doesn't humiliate, it liberates. It doesn't point at the dirt. It reveals the seed buried underneath. The ground of your heart is still good. It only needs clearing. You might think it's too late, that you've wandered too far. But time doesn't disqualify destiny. It delays it until you're ready. And readiness begins the moment you stop running. If, right now, you feel that, stirring the trembling awareness that these words are meant for you, don't ignore it. That warmth in your chest, that tightening in your throat, that quiet voice saying, "This is me, that is God." Stop over-analyzing and start responding. Don't wait for a perfect prayer or a thunderous sign. All heaven needs is one sentence from an honest heart. Type, "I return." 3 small words, but they shake the foundations of darkness. They tell every opposing force, "I've chosen light again." When you write it, don't just comment it, declare it. Let those words become a doorway, a moment of reconnection between your soul and your source. For in that return, heaven rejoices. The same angels that watched you wander now celebrate your homecoming. Conviction completes its work the moment you turn around. You are not beyond grace. You are being rewritten by it. When you write, "I return," you are not proving loyalty. You are accepting invitation. It is your soul saying, "I still hear you, and I still choose you." Heaven reads that sentence not as comment, but as covenant. Those 2 words carry the weight of surrender. They mean you've stopped running, that you've remembered who you are. It's the sound of doors unlocking inside your spirit. The whisper that tells darkness, your hold ends here. No. So when you type it, do it slowly, intentionally. Feel the gravity of it. This is not ritual. Butrunion. Heaven leans close when a heart says, "I return." No. Obedience is the quiet door that swings open to the miraculous. It rarely makes sense when you stand before it. Yet when you step through, everything begins to align. What once felt random becomes rhythm. What once felt heavy becomes holy. The moment obedience moves, heaven responds. There are seasons when the greatest act of faith is not to shout, but to stay. To stay believing when nothing changes. To stay faithful when the reward seems far. To stay kind when bitterness feels justified. In those moments, heaven records not your comfort, but your consistency. Many think obedience is about control, but it's about trust. God asks you to move, not because He needs your strength, but because He wants your participation. Miracles are always joint ventures. Heaven plans them, but faith activates them. A young teacher once told me how she struggled with a command that made no sense. She felt led to forgive someone who had deeply wronged her. The thought itself felt unfair. Still, she obeyed, not with emotion, but with decision. The moment she released the anger, a peace she couldn't explain filled the room. Days later, she received unexpected favor that shifted her life entirely. She said, "It's like the air changed when I obeyed." That's what obedience does. It clears the air between heaven and earth. The Apostles' words in 2 Corinthians remind every believer, chapter 9, verse 8, "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." That verse isn't just about provision, it's about posture. God blesses the hands that stay open, hands willing to release as much as they receive. Chosen one, you are being called to that posture again. A posture of open hands, not clenched in fear, not empty in despair, but ready for partnership. You are not just a receiver of blessings, you are a carrier of them. Think of obedience as planting light in the ground. Every time you follow heaven's nudge, whether through forgiveness, prayer, generosity, or perseverance, you're planting beams of light that will rise later as guidance for others. What looks like small acts today will become lighthouses tomorrow for those lost in darkness, and this is where community matters. The light you tend alone glows softly, but when we join our lights together, we become a constellation, visible even in the darkest sky. Every story, every testimony, every small act of faith connects, forming a map for others to follow. If these messages have ever spoken peace into your chaos, if they've reminded you that heaven still sees you, then you already carry part of that constellation. You help make the light visible. So, if you feel led, like, share, or subscribe, not as a habit, but as a way of extending that light further. Picture it as sending out tiny fireflies of truth into the night. Each one finds a wandering soul who thought hope had died. And if you've ever wondered how you could help keep these messages flowing, think of generosity as your echo in eternity. Our donation, no matter how small, becomes like pouring oil into a lamp that never stops burning. Each drop adds brightness, warmth, and reach. You are not paying for words. You are participating in wonder. You're saying, "Let this light continue. Let it reach someone in the dark the way it reached me." That's what giving really is, a beautiful cycle of gratitude. Maybe you've once stood beside a still lake and dropped a pebble in, watching the ripples move outward until they disappeared into the horizon. That's what your act of support does. One gentle ripple that never truly ends. When you like or share, it's a ripple of light. When you subscribe, it's a commitment to stay near the flame. When you donate, it's a drop of oil, ensuring the flame doesn't die out for the next traveler. There is beauty in collective obedience. When many hearts move as one, heaven responds with abundance. The same spirit that spoke to Abraham, Esther, and Joshua still stirs in you, urging you to build something beyond yourself. Let your obedience today, your yes, your share, your seed become part of that eternal network of light. You're not just listening, you're helping heaven speak louder. And someday, when another weary soul stumbles across a message like this and finds strength again, heaven will whisper, "That light reached them because of you." So keep your hands open, your heart steady, your spirit generous. Obedience is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of miracles still unfolding. There are moments when the air around you seems to hum subtle, electric, charged with meaning you can't quite name. Those are the moments when heaven rearranges itself over your life. The unseen armies of God begin to move, wings brushing against the borders of your atmosphere. You may not see them, but something deep within you senses the shift. The hosts of heaven are not distant figures from ancient stories. They are living forces still assigned to divine purpose. Scripture speaks of them not as decoration, but as deployment. They are God's response to obedience, His invisible reinforcement of promise. And when a chosen one begins to align, heaven mobilizes. David once sang in the Psalms, proclaiming, chapter 91, verse 11, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." And that word guard is not passive, it means to surround, to form a living wall. When you decide to walk in the will of God, the invisible becomes your protection. The same Spirit that commands your steps commands the atmosphere around you. You've walked through days when the pressure was unbearable, when it felt like the air itself pressed against you. Yet, somehow, you endured. You may not realize it, but endurance is rarely human. It's divine reinforcement. Angels don't always appear in brilliance. They appear in strength that carries you when you can no longer carry yourself. There is an old teaching that angels respond to faith the way seeds respond to rain. When faith rises, they move. When words of faith are spoken, they gather. This is why your declarations matter. Heaven's army listens not to fear, but to faith. When you choose hope in the face of heaviness, heaven mobilizes as if hearing a trumpet. Imagine it this way: every prayer is a beacon, a flare in the night sky that signals the hosts of heaven. Each word of trust draws unseen forces closer. You are never praying into emptiness, you are speaking into command. A mother once told me she used to pray quietly over her son every night as he slept. He was rebellious, cold, unreachable. For years, she saw no change. Yet she kept whispering, "Lord, surround him." One evening, her son came home, trembling, tears in his eyes. He said, "I don't know why, but I couldn't go through with what I planned. Something stopped me." That something was someone. The angels assigned to a mother's faith had intervened. There are moments when you will never know how close danger came, because heaven intercepted it. How many accidents were avoided? How many arrows fell short? How many nights you thought you were alone, while the unseen kept watch? The hosts of heaven do not rest, for they carry your name in the rhythm of their assignment. Still, this protection does not mean you are exempt from battle. Angels do not eliminate warfare. They ensure victory. The presence of resistance often means reinforcement is near. The darker the pressure, the closer the breakthrough. When the night feels heaviest, heaven's army is often closest. You might not feel worthy of such attention, but worthiness was never the requirement. Faith was. The same faith that moves mountains moves messengers. Every time you choose to trust, a sound rises in the invisible, and heaven answers. Chosen one. There are seasons when the most spiritual thing you can do is stand still, not because you are weak, but because standing signals belief that the Lord of hosts fights for you. You do not win through striving, you win through stillness. Picture a battlefield at dawn. The warrior stands, armor, dusty but intact. Around him, faint rays of light begin to pierce the fog. He cannot yet see his allies, but he feels their presence. That is you right now, standing in faith. While the armies of heaven form in silence, your endurance is not unnoticed. The shaking of your knees, the whispered prayers, the quiet nights when you refuse to quit all of it, summoned the unseen. Angels have lined the path ahead, clearing what you cannot yet see. The sound of their wings might never reach your ears, but their movement will reach your life. Where chaos once lived, peace will settle. Where fear once ruled, faith will rebuild. You will walk forward, not realizing that every step you take is escorted. So hold your posture. Breathe steady. The skies above you are not empty, they are occupied. Heaven's hosts are already in formation, awaiting the next command that rises from your faith. You do not fight alone. Light has a sound. When you choose obedience over hesitation, when you choose forgiveness over pride, something unseen resounds through eternity. Darkness trembles, not at your perfection, but at your persistence. You've carried light through seasons where shadows were louder, yet your flame still burns. That is no small thing. It is warfare disguised as endurance. Your presence alone unsettled darkness. Every time you wake up and choose kindness, every time you refuse bitterness, heaven notices. You carry something the enemy cannot copy, resilience born of revelation. The more the world pushes against you, the brighter that inner flame grows. But this is not just about survival, it's about awakening. Many carry light without realizing it. They think their glow is too dim to matter, not knowing that one candle can start 1,000 fires. You are that candle, and your light terrifies what once tried to destroy you. As the Gospel of John reveals with divine authority, chapter 1, verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Oh, that verse was never meant to be poetic. It was prophetic. It declares that the darkness doesn't win by force. It wins only through distraction. As long as you keep shining, even softly, the enemy cannot extinguish you. Picture your spirit as a lantern in the night. The wind may howl, the rain may sting, but the flame within keeps burning. The oil that sustains it is not strength, it's surrender. The more you yield to God, the steadier your flame becomes. You've been through storms that should have drowned your faith, yet somehow, something always brought you back. That something was grace, holding the lantern steady until your hands could take it again. Grace never scolds, it steadies. It whispers, I kept the flame while you rested. Oh, there was once a man who described his journey as walking through a valley where even the stars seemed gone. One night, in the lowest point of despair, he whispered, if there's still light somewhere, send it. The next morning, a friend he hadn't spoken to in years sent him a single verse, you are not forgotten. That message reignited something in him. The flame came back. That's how light works. It travels through people, through moments, through whispers, until it finds the next soul ready to carry it. You are one of those carriers now. The darkness that once hunted you has learned your name, but it cannot touch your light. It can only try to distract you from it. Do not let it. This is the season where heaven strengthens the hands of its torchbearers. You are being refueled for what comes after October 22nd. The miracles that await are not just for you, they are through you. Others will walk by your glow and find their way home. But heaven never releases light without asking for agreement. Agreement is faith made visible. It's heaven's way of knowing you're still listening, still believing, still standing in alignment. And for this moment, there is a prophetic number assigned a declaration of illumination and restoration, 444. When you comment 444, you are not chasing coincidence, you are declaring covenant. It means, I carry light. I will not hide it. I am part of what heaven is building. Those 3 digits represent divine establishment, the steady foundation on which light cannot fail. Think of it like striking flint in the spirit. Each time someone declares 444, a spark ignites somewhere across the world. Sparks mate sparks. Flames gather. Suddenly, the horizon begins to glow where once it was only night. That's how heaven spreads light through collective agreement. As you write it, visualize your comment, not as text, but as light breaking through dark clouds. It travels farther than you think, touching hearts you may never meet. Your single act of faith becomes part of a symphony of fire that heaven conducts across nations. This is not superstition, it is symbolism. The light responds to recognition. When you recognize who you are, a bearer of divine flame, the atmosphere shifts. Darkness loses ground, not because it retreats, but because you rise. So, if your spirit bears witness, write 444 below. Do it as a reminder to yourself and a declaration to heaven. You are not fading, you are being reignited. The flame within you is not fragile, it's eternal. And when you type it, pause for a moment. Feel the warmth in your chest. That is heaven answering back, saying, I see your light. Keep it burning. And every spark you release joins countless others, forming a sunrise the world cannot ignore. Together, chosen one, we turn night into morning. The path of the chosen one is rarely loud. It winds through hidden valleys where applause fades and only purpose remains. These are the places where God watches your quiet choices when no one is there to notice. When faith becomes private endurance instead of public performance, that's where the real weight of your calling is measured. There is a test that every soul marked by heaven must walk through: isolation. It isn't punishment, it's preparation. Solitude refines what crowds can only flatter. It pulls away every false support until only truth stands. When everything familiar falls silent, you begin to hear heaven clearly again. At first, isolation feels like exile. You wonder what went wrong, why the path that once overflowed with confirmations now feels narrow, why prayers echo instead of being answered. But what you call emptiness, heaven calls invitation. The silence is not absence, it's construction. The prophet Habakkuk resolved in his watchtower and said, Chapter 2, Verse 1, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. Habakkuk stood waiting for God, not with noise, but with watchfulness. That is the posture of those being refined in isolation. They learn to look more than they speak. The waiting becomes worship. The stillness becomes strength. The hidden season teaches lessons that noise never could. It strips you of the need to be understood, teaching you that purpose is not validated by popularity. The eyes of heaven are enough. You begin to realize that solitude isn't God withholding people from you. It's Him removing the unnecessary so that what remains is sacred. Think of a seed buried beneath the soil, alone, unseen, pressed by darkness. To the untrained eye, it appears forgotten. Yet under that pressure, something irreversible is happening. Roots form. Structure deepens. Life prepares to break through. The seed's isolation is the proof of its potential. The same is true for you. There was a season in David's life, before the crown, when he was hidden among sheep and silence. No spotlight, no recognition. Yet it was there, in solitude, that he learned the sound of God's voice, the rhythm of worship, and the courage to face giants. The field looked like obscurity, but it was heaven's classroom. You might feel like that right now, surrounded by quiet, misunderstood by many, seen by few, but heaven sees you perfectly. The isolation you endure is not a detour, it's a design. You are not forgotten, you are being filtered. Every unnecessary voice is being silenced so the right word can rise. Loneliness often disguises itself as loss, but in the spiritual realm, loss is often a clearing, a pruning of distractions so new growth can emerge. The branch feels the cut, but the vine knows the fruit that will follow. There is a story of a woman who felt abandoned after years of ministry. Invitations stopped. Her name faded from the conversations that once celebrated her. She wept, thinking God had moved on. One morning, she felt compelled to walk to a nearby hill before sunrise. There, surrounded by stillness, she sensed a whisper. This is not your ending, this is your refining. Months later, opportunities returned, but she was different. Softer, deeper, whole. Isolation will either harden you or hollow you, depending on whether you resist or release. When you release, the silence becomes sanctuary. You begin to notice heaven in small things, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet reassurance that grace still covers you. In the wilderness, nuages fade, and truth echoes. You start to see that the same God who spoke to Elijah through a whisper still speaks that way now. He does not need to raise his voice to reach you. He only needs your stillness. Chosen one, do not rush to escape your quiet season. Do not mistake the absence of people for the absence of purpose. Heaven hides its strongest warriors before their unveiling. The cocoon is never punishment for the caterpillar. It is protection during transformation. You are in that cocoon now, where movement feels restricted, but destiny is taking shape. The stretching you feel is evidence of growth. What you perceive as stillness is actually motion beneath the surface. And soon, when the time is right, the silence will break, and what was hidden will emerge radiant, stronger, lighter, ready. You will no longer ask why the season was long. You will thank God that it was. The isolation that once felt unbearable will become the foundation of your authority, because what you learned in silence will speak louder than any crowd could ever echo. Restoration never arrives as suddenly as we wish, but when it comes, it carries the fragrance of divine precision. It does not rush in like a flood. It moves like dawn, soft at first, gentle, deliberate, yet unstoppable. Every shadow that lingered begins to fade, and you realize heaven was never ignoring you. It was preparing the right timing for return. Restoration is not simply about getting back what was lost. It is about receiving what has been refined through loss. The things stripped away were never wasted. They were transformed in God's hands while you waited. What returns carries more weight, more wisdom, more worth than before. The ancient promise recorded by Joel declares, chapter 2, verse 25, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Unquote. Those words are not poetic nostalgia, they are a divine contract. They promise that no season of sorrow is beyond redemption. Even the time that felt wasted is being rewritten into usefulness. Heaven does not recycle pain, it resurrects purpose. Restoration begins quietly. In the corners of your life, you stopped watching. You may not even recognize it at first. A conversation that softens an old wound. An opportunity that looks small but carries future favor. A new peace in places that once felt haunted. These are not coincidences. They are stitches of grace, repairing what was torn. Consider the process of mending fabric. The tailor does not simply patch over the tear, they align the fibers, weaving carefully until the old and new blend seamlessly. That's how God restores. He doesn't heed your brokenness, He integrates it, turning scars into signatures of grace. You once thought certain chapters were over, that the betrayal, the loss, or the failure marked your ending. Yet, those pages were only pauses. Heaven does not write in straight lines. It weaves redemption through detours. There was a man who lost everything in a single-year business. Family, reputation. He prayed for restoration, but saw nothing for a long time. One night, while reading scripture, he felt a whisper, "I am rebuilding, not replacing." Months later, a new opportunity emerged, different, smaller at first, but born from peace rather than panic. Over time, it grew beyond what he had before. He said later, "God didn't return what I lost. He returned me." That is the mystery of true restoration. It begins inside before it appears outside. Heaven works inward first, healing perception, teaching patience, anchoring identity. Once your soul is settled, external blessings can safely arrive. Otherwise, what returns too early can collapse under old weight. Restoration is not a single event. It is a sequence, like rain reviving dry earth. Each drop softens a little more until the ground can bear fruit again. You may already be in that rainfall without realizing it. The tears that once symbolized grief are now watering tomorrow's harvest. Chosen one, you are walking in the corridor between ruin and renewal. Each step feels cautious, as though you're relearning how to trust goodness again. That is part of the restoration, faith rebuilt from the inside out. Look closely at your story. The very places where you were broken are beginning to shimmer with unexpected beauty. The relationships that survived have become deeper. The prayers that once felt unanswered have changed shape, revealing themselves as protection rather than neglect. Even your voice, once shaky with disappointment, now carries quiet authority. There is no restoration without revelation. You had to lose the illusion of control to find the reality of grace. You had to taste emptiness to recognize true abundance. God's restoration doesn't erase your wilderness, it redeems it. Think of a forest after fire. The ground looks barren. The air smells of smoke. Yet beneath the ashes, seeds begin to stir. Certain trees only release their potential when touched by heat. Without the fire, they would never grow. In the same way, Your losses activated seeds that could only sprout through pressure. The beauty of divine restoration is that it does not return you to who you were. It introduces you to who you were always meant to be. The you that emerges after refinement carries the wisdom to steward blessings without breaking under them. One day soon, you will look back and see how every delay, every detour, every heartbreak was part of the scaffolding of grace. The building may have looked unfinished, but heaven was working on the foundation. Restoration is already in motion. You can feel it in the small moments of peace. The new steadiness in your heart. What once defined you by loss will soon define you by resilience. The cracks that let light in are no longer reminders of pain. They're proof that darkness failed to keep you hidden. What was meant to end you has become the evidence that God's hand never left. You are not returning to what you had. You are being restored into something greater whole, wise, and beautifully scarred with glory. Glory often arrives dressed as warfare. Before a crown rests on your head, the weight of it must first be felt in your spirit. The pressure you are under now is not punishment. It's proof that heaven is preparing you to wear what others could not carry. Every chosen one must face this moment, when resistance rises just before release. When the atmosphere grows heavier, even as breakthrough nears, it feels unfair that the hardest battles appear closest to victory. But it's always been this way. The enemy only fights what he fears, and he fears the one who refuses to quit. Peter's own words in his first letter affirm, chapter 5, verse 10, "After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." That verse isn't a warning, it's a promise. It means that pain has a finish line, and that every tear shed in private will become testimony in public. Picture this moment as the final bend of a mountain trail. You can't yet see the summit, but the air feels thinner, sharper, charged. That ache in your chest isn't defeat, it's altitude. You're breathing rarefied air, the kind that only the elevated know. You've come too far to turn back now. The crown doesn't appear out of nowhere, it forms through endurance. Each act of forgiveness polishes it. Each moment of faith tightens it. Each surrender shapes it. By the time it rests upon your head, it will already fit your heart. Glory is not loud, it's luminous. It shines quietly from lives that have been broken and mended in mercy. You've become that kind of light, a living flame refined in darkness. Heaven will soon call your name, not as a reminder of pain, but as a declaration of completion. And as this transformation unfolds, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to lift others without even realizing it. Your words become wings for the weary. Your endurance becomes a signal that hope still breathes. You stop striving to prove your calling and start living as proof of it. If this journey has spoken to your soul, if these words have met you in your valleys and reminded you that crowns are forged in fire, then let your response be more than reaction. Let it be resonance. Like these words, if they've mirrored something in your story, as though saying, "Yes, this is my echo." When you do, imagine a flame rising higher for every heart that whispers the same agreement. Share them not as content, but as comfort. Think of each share as sending out a paper lantern across a midnight sky, your small light joining hundreds of others, guiding those still wandering toward their dawn. And if these words echo something deep within you, leave a quiet mark below. Comment, "My crown shines," and "not to be seen," but to be sealed, to say, I accept the light I've carried all along. It's your gentle signature beneath heaven's letter, and if your spirit feels drawn to stay close to this space, then subscribe, not out of habit, but as a quiet way of saying, keep the fire lit. I'll return for the next flame. Notice, for those who have been asking how they can stand with this work, I'll speak plainly. A donation here isn't a transaction, it's a seed of light. Imagine placing a small candle on a long path. You may not walk it again, but the next traveler will see by that light. That's what your giving does. It turns your gratitude into guidance for another soul. You owe nothing. This is invitation, not obligation. The kingdom doesn't take. It multiplies what love releases. Give only if peace accompanies it. For peace is heaven's permission. Perhaps you have little to offer right now. Then give the purest gift, your prayer. Whisper. Keep the flame reaching farther. Heaven hears every unseen act of partnership. Chosen one. Understand this. Crowns are not for decoration, they're for recognition. They signal to both heaven and earth that the battle has been won and the bearer has been changed. You've earned yours through tears, faith, and relentless surrender. So lift your head, warrior of light. You've fought the invisible wars and stood when it was easier to fall. The crown doesn't make you royal. Your endurance already did. Now, the glory that rests upon you will draw others to their own awakening. And as you continue, may every like, every share, every comment, every subscription, and every offered gift become part of the gold thread heaven uses to weave your crown a tapestry of faith, love, and light that never fades. There is a stillness that follows obedience, a peace too deep to explain. It settled quietly, like morning fog over a valley that has just survived the storm. You realize, almost without noticing, that the air has changed. The battle that once echoed loud in your spirit now feels distant, muffled, as though heaven itself has pressed its hand over the noise. This is what dawn after obedience feels like. Not a shout of victory, but a whisper of restoration. The weight you once carried begins to lift, replaced by a calm certainty that you did not walk through the fire in vain. You start to see how every delay, every silence, every unanswered prayer was part of a divine choreography. When God finishes what he begins, it rarely looks the way we imagined. We expect fireworks, he gives fruit. We expect applause, he offers peace. His blessings don't always arrive wrapped in grandeur, they often come disguised as stillness, as quiet days that finally breathe again. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 32, verse 17, "The fruit of righteousness will be peace. Its effect will be quietness and confidence forever." Peace is not the absence of struggle, it's the result of alignment. It's the moment when your spirit, no longer at war with heaven's will, begins to rest inside divine rhythm. The same waves that once terrified you now carry you forward. After obedience, clarity begins to return. You can look back without pain, forward without fear, and within without confusion. You begin to recognize patterns, how the things that hurt the most taught the lessons that mattered the most. The wilderness that once felt cruel now feels sacred because it led you here. There's a story of a craftsman who built glass windows for cathedrals. One day, a piece of stained glass shattered in his hands, scattering across the floor. Frustrated, he almost swept it away. But something stopped him. Later, he took the shards, cut them smaller, and built a mosaic. When sunlight touched it, the broken pieces scattered colors across the floor, more brilliant than the unbroken panel had ever been. He said softly, "I thought I ruined it, but I only revealed it." That's what obedience does. It turns broken things into mosaics of meaning. You begin to see the artistry of God in your own scars. You no longer chase miracles, you live as one. The way you speak becomes softer, your pace steadier, your vision clearer. You don't need to announce transformation, it announces itself in your peace. Many will not understand this stage of your journey. They'll wonder why you seem content without constant movement, why success no longer excites you the way stillness does. That's because they haven't yet tasted the kind of peace that doesn't depend on outcome. The world measures progress by motion, but heaven measures it by maturity. To be still and faithful after the storm is a greater miracle than surviving the storm itself. Chosen one, you've walked through enough fire to recognize the value of calm. You don't need validation anymore. You've learned to rest in confirmation. What once required signs now requires only trust. The voice that used to demand explanation now only whispers gratitude. Look around you now. The details you once ignored are glowing. Small blessings shimmer like dew. A kind word. Avar mil. A moment of laughter. These are heaven's quiet gifts. Proof that peace has truly entered your house. You may not realize it yet. But this stillness is not the end. It's the space between assignments. Heaven always gives rest before revelation. The silence is gathering strength for the next command. So, breathe deeply. Let this peace anchor itself. You've earned this pause. Not through striving, but through surrender. The war has not ended because the world grew kinder. It ended because your spirit grew stronger. Every chosen one eventually learns this rhythm battle. Obedience, rest, and revelation. You are standing now in that sacred interval where the heart recovers, where the soul regains balance. It is a holy kind of quiet, and heaven is watching you breathe. When you wake tomorrow, something in you will have changed, not in sound or spectacle, but in substance. The world will feel lighter because your soul has stopped fighting gravity. You've learned that peace is not a place you reach, it's a posture you carry. And in that posture, heaven whispers its next word, not as command, but as communion. The dawn after obedience is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your destiny's calm. Heaven keeps records not of perfection, but of surrender. Every moment you chose faith over fear, mercy over anger, silence over reaction, has been written into eternity. These pages of unseen obedience become your true legacy. You may have forgotten some of them, but heaven hasn't. What feels ordinary to you becomes evidence of divine partnership in the archives of God. This is what it means for your yes to be eternal. It's not a single decision, it's a rhythm that heaven continues to echo long after the moment passes. Each time you trust in uncertainty, the echo grows louder. Each time you forgive without condition, that echo expands. Soon, your life itself becomes a melody, a song of surrender that angels recognize. When October 22nd arrives, heaven won't only see a date, it will see devotion. That day will stand as a marker, a memorial of transformation. You may not sense fireworks or visible miracles, but something permanent will shift in the invisible. The frequency of your life will have changed. You will vibrate in tune with obedience. We find in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing and perfect will." And that transformation is not an event, it's an evolution. It doesn't happen in a flash of light, but through steady surrender, day by day. You will know it's real when peace replaces urgency, when gratitude takes the place of striving, when your heart no longer flinches at the unknown. Heaven's record of your yes is more than words. It's woven into reality itself. Every act of obedience leaves an imprint on the atmosphere. You've already changed more than you realize. Somewhere, someone has drawn hope from your endurance, strength from your story. That is legacy, the kind written not on monuments, but on souls. There was once a young woman who dreamed of changing nations, but spent years feeling invisible. She prayed, "Lord, I've done everything you asked, but nothing is moving." Then one night, she heard a whisper, "Everything is moving because you did what I asked." She didn't see the ripple. Her obedience created how it reached people she'd never meet, shaping destinies she'd never touch. Heaven records influence differently. The smallest act of obedience is like dropping gold dust into water. It spreads silently, tinting everything around it. That's how God works, quietly, completely. Chosen one, you are standing at the edge of fulfillment. The waiting has forged wisdom, the battle has birthed vision, and your obedience has invited heaven into motion. The mistakes you feared would ruin you have been rewritten into miracles. The tears you thought were wasted became intercession. The nights you called empty were full of angels documenting your endurance. Now, a new rhythm begins. Heaven's record of your yes is sealed not with ink, but with breath, the breath of the Spirit that carried you here. The same Spirit that hovered over creation hovers over you now, whispering, "It is finished, and it is beginning." You'll notice subtle shifts, conversations that bring clarity, doors that open without struggle, peace where anxiety once lived. These are signs of alignment, the fruit of a life finally tuned to heaven's key. You won't need to chase opportunity. Obedience has already sent invitations ahead of you. There is something profoundly quiet about arrival. No trumpet, no spectacle, just still fulfillment. Heaven prefers subtlety because glory speaks louder in stillness. You won't need to announce that your season has changed. The calm on your face will say it for you. When you step into October 22nd, step lightly. Let gratitude lead. You are walking on sacred ground, the bridge between promise and manifestation. This is not the end of your story. It's the unveiling of it. Your yes is now eternal. Heaven has written your obedience into its design, and the earth will echo it through every life you touch. The miracle has never been about what you receive. It has always been about who you become. And now, standing in the light of fulfillment, you finally understand. All along, you weren't chasing miracles. You were becoming one. The world will keep spinning, unaware of the shift that has taken place within you. But heaven knows. Every step you take now hums with purpose. Peace will follow you, like a shadow. Not because the road is smooth, but because your heart is steady. You've learned to walk with the wind of God. And as new days unfold, remember, Your obedience didn't just open doors, it changed the atmosphere. You are the miracle you once waited for, chosen one. You've reached the closing of this message, but heaven is not done speaking. What was stirred in your spirit through these words was never meant to end here. It is the beginning of a new rhythm, faith that breathes, peace that leads, obedience that shines quietly through every step ahead. If this journey has touched you, let it keep flowing. Like this message, not as routine, but as a way of saying, I recognize this truth. It lives in me. Each click is a silent amen whispered into the atmosphere, telling heaven, I'm still listening. Share this message if it brought you light. Picture it as releasing a bird of hope into the sky, carrying a feather of faith toward someone who no longer believes dawn will come. One simple act of sharing can turn their night into morning. And if these words echoed something within you, leave your mark below. Comment, light lives on. It isn't about visibility, it's about remembrance. When you write it, it becomes a quiet declaration that the fire you've received will not go out with this moment. If your heart feels stirred to linger here, to keep walking alongside this voice, then subscribe. Think of it not as a button, but as a doorway, one that leads you back to reminders of light when the world grows loud again. If these words have strengthened you and you feel peace in your giving, a small donation is never about money, it's about meaning. It's like placing a stone in a river, helping to build a bridge for others to cross into hope. Every drop of generosity becomes another spark that keeps this flame alive for someone still searching in the dark. You don't owe anything. You're invited to participate. This is a community of light, not obligation. So, before you go, pause for a moment. Breathe. Whisper gratitude for what you've received, and then carry it forward. Because the light now lives in you, and wherever you walk next, heaven will follow,